My name is Ashley Stanhope. I am founder and CEO of Hard Fork Media. We work with different crypto companies on go-to-market strategies, media outreach and training. We're based in Toronto and New York. Launched newly about a month ago with me and my business partner, Gina. And yeah, I'll let everyone introduce themselves.
I'm John Brownlee. I'm the information officer at Zenza Capital, the RYO Project's parent company, and I'm based out of Arizona and Airport Lounges.
And I'm Corbin Fraser, CEO of Bitcoin.com. We've got a self-custodial wallet app, award-winning news website, some games, and a whole bunch of other stuff on Bitcoin.com. So yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Ritvik Paliwal. I am partner at Quantum Leap Labs. We are the first North American incubator to accelerate projects on the internet computer ecosystem.
Knowing that we are in Toronto, wanted to talk a little bit about how the crypto Web3 space has evolved over the last decade. It, started Ethereum. Ethereum was built in the backyard. The industry largely started as like a lot of hobbyists, technologists getting together, Bitcoin meetups, early Ethereum meetups. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar industry. I would love to hear your perspective of how things have changed over the last decade. Want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I think that one of the great things that has happened is that there's been sort of a natural market-driven sifting and winnowing of a lot of the back-end projects. One of the places where I do think I maybe wish that there'd been a little bit more development would be on the front end and usability. That's something we focused on in our efforts. But by and large, I think that there's no longer a lot of need to really, we probably have a lot of good blockchains out there. There's a lot of good technology that's been built by some very smart people and tested over a long period of time. And I think that's probably been the place where I've been the most pleased with the development of the last 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah, and I would say over the past 10 years or so, even blockchain space has evolved a lot from just being ledger-based technologies as Bitcoin Ledger and then Ethereum gave the programming capability. Now we have deepins out there, blockchains like Internet Computer, which are claiming to be decentralized cloud, where you have more power than just being a ledger-based technology. You can store large amount of data, media, and whatnot on the chain itself. And some of the deepen infrastructures are also focusing on giving end-to-end experience from the smart contracts directly to the user's web browser experience.
Yeah, I think like for us, at least at Bitcoin.com, what we've seen is primarily this like evolution from Bitcoin into multi-chain, into multi-coin. And I think what we're seeing here, especially out on the floor here at Blockchain Futurist, is just tons of more projects, more blockchains, more L2s, more NFT projects. There's just like more things being built across this wider industry. And it's really changed a lot where, when we first started our wallet, we had 2 cryptocurrencies in our wallet app. And since then, we've grown it to like dozens now. And there's still, we're still behind the curve compared to like a lot of other wallets. There's a lot of innovative things happening. And it's just, it's up to us to all keep up.
What are ways you feel that we can make it easier to onboard Web2 developers into Web3?
Yeah, so from a development perspective, I can talk about, I have around 15 years of development experience. Most of the time, developers feel it challenging to learn new technology all the time, right? And now every blockchain which is coming to market, they're coming up with their own languages, Solidity, Move, Rust, and whatnot. I think every blockchain can have their own proprietary language, but as long as they can have transpilers on top of it, so people can code just in JavaScript or Rust, whatever the familiar language developers usually adopt, as long as they don't learn new technology to build smart contracts on your blockchain, that's a big entry point for Web2 developers into Web3 ecosystem.
Right.
Yeah, I think that probably the most important takeaway that we've had has been that in order to be a leader, you first have to be a little bit of a teacher. And I believe that an important thing that we've really focused on is on education, not just to the end user, but also to the developer community. And you have to meet them where they're at. And that's why we focus in our development with the RYO project on interoperability. So being able to take native dApps that are already written in Viper or Solidity, and they can touch our nodes and be processed by our system in Japan with regulatory approval and oversight. And then, but if you want to write in Rust, I mean, that's fine too. You know, we can even interact with your Solana project. So I think that meeting people with interoperability in education has really been the key to that outreach.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that, you know, I know we were talking about that Web 1, Web 2 era, even like the dot-com bubble, right?
Right.
Are there some lessons that Web 3 can borrow from the earlier iterations of the internet to improve upon?
Yeah, so I think that, you know, the short answer is yes. And I think that one of the places that we've seen this cycle many times before. I mean, the famous example is sort of the Promethean Myth, like, you know, who invented it first is not necessarily who's going to bring it to market. And the example I like to use from one of my mentors is a gentleman who ran Xerox PARC, and they had the mouse, as everybody knows famously, which was not actually invented at Xerox. It was invented at Stanford Research in the 1960s and early 70s. It took from 1975 until 1984 in the famous commercial for the Macintosh for that to be brought to a mass market device. And I think that, you know, there's a different set of technical skills it takes to build something in the lab and get it to the point where you can show it to someone, and then to make it to something that could be mass adopted and mass consumer oriented. And I think that that's really a place where, you know, that's a different set of technical skills than taking something out of a lab and showing it to someone for the first time. And we have a lot of great projects at this conference that are at that lab stage. I think that a place that, you know, we could really learn is to look at the examples of how people have taken something from that initial stage and use the technical and also sort of the consumer savvy discipline it takes in order to bring that to a mass market.
Right. Anything you want to weigh in on, Corbin?
Yeah, I guess from my end, you know, there's been this developer-driven soul behind crypto since day one. But if we're going to evolve and see mass adoption, the developers might need to take a back seat sometimes for some design people, some marketing people to come in and really iron out the wrinkles, because it's not perfect. You know, you onboard people to a new wallet. It's still, there's high friction for new users. And if we're not at a point where wallets are mom-friendly or grandpa-friendly or whoever, we're going to have some serious pain points, and you're going to just cause these people to move back towards centralized exchanges where there's these high risks of rugs and being wrecked.
Right. So it's kind of like, oh, go ahead, Vivek, you want to add?
No, yeah, I was also seconding your opinion when we compare things with dot-com bubble. People were in mindset, why do we need softwares at all, right? But with the whole internet era, now we are seeing we are totally dependent on softwares, and software has eaten the whole world. In the Web3 era, I personally believe smart contracts will eat the software industry. Code will be able to execute in a tamper-proof, trustless manner, which everybody can trust, and that will be the future, in my own opinion.
Do you think that sometimes we can confuse people with a lot of the technical terms and the jargon, and what's your perspective on that?
Sure. So I think that the really painful thing for people to understand that are kind of in this developer-driven mentality, which I think Corbin hits on beautifully, and we've struggled with this and had to focus a lot of attention in building our GPS Life wallet for the RYO project in Japan. And that is, most consumers don't care about the back end. They really don't care about the things that I worry about at night, and I think a lot of us may really deeply have attachments and religious debates about. They want it to be simple. It needs to be frictionless. Maybe a huge, giant hexadecimal string is not the right way to identify where your money goes. Maybe there needs to be an easier way to do it. If your grandmother can't use it to pay her water bill for her house, maybe you need to rethink your UX. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, no, talking about Web 2 adoption, you have a seamless experience, right? You can use your Google login, and then you are into an application and whatnot. With Web3 as well, we want to focus as if user is just using Facebook and they don't know how the internet protocol is working. Similarly, when they're using a dApp on any of the blockchain, they should not worry about what is happening in the background. Simple cases like if they can log in using Google and some third-party identity provider can manage their complex keys on the background, that's a seamless transition for Web2 users to Web3 protocols.
Right.
One of my favorite analogies is, in the old days, when email became like a new thing, email was like, hey, you got to set up your POP3, or are you going to go IMAP, or are you going to go, or you got to, what's your SMTP domain? And you'd have to walk your mom or your dad through these painful things like setting up a printer. And we've gotten now to a point where you can just 1 or 2 clicks be set up with an email account. And that's the type of experience that we need crypto to get to. We're not quite there. I think we're getting there closer with some of the MPC developments that we've seen in the space on the wallet front, but removing all of the jargon, like the end users don't care. They don't care if it's POP or IMAP. They don't care if it's Solidity or Rust. They don't care if it's Ethereum or an L2 or Polygon or whatever. It's just, does it function?
Right. I feel like there's like a lot of great ideas that are just being built upon and they're developing and they're kind of in that stage where sure we don't have the new eigenlayers or restaking protocols, but there's still a lot of cool stuff, you know, being built around.
Can I say no?
Yeah, of course. No.
Can I say no? No, it's not okay. 5 years ago, we had less than 1% penetration, and we were all talking about how great it was going to be in 5 years. And 5 years later, we're still at less than 1% penetration, which means that we're not doing something right.
Okay.
So if what you're doing is not working, either you might want to try something different. And I think that the place where we really need to focus our attention is on the user, is on focusing on making the simple experience of, the example we use in our developer meetings is, I want to be able to go down to the 7-Eleven and buy a rice ball with crypto, and I want it to be as simple, easy, painless, and as if I walked in and I gave them a pile of yen. It has to be that simple, and if it's anything other than that experience, then I believe that we have a lot of work to do, and the innovations of the last year, frankly, have not moved in that direction because they're focused on the wrong part of the user experience. We need to focus on things like what we've been doing with our Life Wallet, what we've been doing with our user experience.
Do you think there are any misconceptions that you want to clear up about crypto?
Yeah, I have a few. I think the biggest problem that we have, it is a little bit of an image problem. I think Corbin's on mark there, and we can clear that up. I think by first, there's a project that I saw a talk of for Ring of Rings, which is the idea of trying to get a little bit of self-policing together. I think that the projects like that have a lot of value, and we should all take a little bit of our duty cycle as leaders and focus on that. And we're committed to do that, in my project. The second piece, I think, is I think we need to acknowledge the fact that regulation is not the enemy, that it is in fact the gateway to mass adoption. That your mom is not going to get involved in crypto as a way to pay things if they don't believe that there's some kind of consumer protection behind it. Right. And I think that in order to get to that place, we have to be honest with ourselves that totally anonymous payment systems are not necessarily going to go mainstream. That may make some people very angry, and I may have part of my soul that feels the same way. But the fact is that a little bit of that is going to have to change, and we're going to need to begin with asking our regulators what we're allowed to do rather than walking in with a tech stack and saying, here's what I'm going to do. It's just not a way that things work in Japan, I can tell you that.
Right. How can we strike a balance, though, between protecting, the industry and harnessing all of the development that's happening, but also not go completely against regulation? Like, how can we kind of address that challenge?
I think first of all, from a entrepreneur founder perspective, we have to give clarity to them, right? I'll call upon to lawmakers and people who are into law space to clearly define some of the regulations. There is a lot of pain point in a founder's mind regarding if I launch a token, whether it's a security, it's a commodity, and whatnot. If we have a clarity from the government or from policies that, okay, hey, a token may or may not be a security if you do certain things this way. There is a bill which is tabled in the US government as well where they are trying to classify these tokens as not as security but as commodity as long as you follow some guidelines such as if founders own only less than 20% of the token supply, then it might be classified as a commodity rather than a security. More of clarities like this will give more confidence to innovators and founders to build awesome things in the ecosystem.
Yeah. And any thoughts on the regulation side of things?
Yeah, I think clearly there needs to be enough room for innovation to happen. I think most people are not necessarily anti-regulation. It's just sane regulation. But I think it changes so wildly, administration to administration or government to government or region to region, and there's no clear playbook, and it doesn't really make innovating in this space easy, which is largely why I think this last cycle, we haven't seen anything new and exciting and innovative. It's just rehashes of a lot of the old stuff that's just kind of being given a new twist, or it's, like I said, NFTs on Bitcoin. It's good, cool, but is it the thing that's going to innovate and change the whole world? Probably not. But so I think on the one hand, regulation is good, but I do on the other hand say that probably a lot of us don't hate regulators enough. They don't have our best interests at heart. They're largely there to make a name for themselves as just trying to protect the masses, but kind of cut off anyone that draws outside of the lines.
Yeah, I'm going to take exception to one thing, which is I don't even think that they care about the consumer in a lot of countries. And I'm going to raise my hand here as maybe as the token person who's been involved in actually authoring some model law about crypto regulation and classification of tokens. The thing that's really ironic is, we're kind of lucky in Japan. Is it a tough gauntlet to run? Absolutely. JVCEA and FSA don't mess around. But the other side of it is that they have provided us with some clear guidance from the very beginning. And they're also very obviously focused on consumer protection, where I don't always think that in the United States they're necessarily even focusing on protecting the consumer. Maybe sometimes they're focused on protecting particular corporate actors, and some of those have names that I think we all know, TradFi. But the fact is that at the end of the day, sane regulation be fine. I think that it's just really getting down to the point of having something that will survive from one administration to the next, so that we just know where we're going to go.
Right. Where do you see the industry? How do you see the industry evolving over the next 6 to 12 months? Does anybody want to take a stab?
I think that the RYO project's going to hit it out of the park in Japan.
Yeah. That's okay.
I guess from my end, I think we're seeing more innovators at these types of events where they're trying to find that safe path where they can stay within the lines, not get into too much trouble. And I think this is where self-custody actually provides the biggest opportunity for wiggle room, because it does seem like most countries at this point are taking a more firm stance on the custodied funds, and the self-custodied funds do have a little bit more wiggle room. So this is potentially a space for innovation for wallet creators and wallet builders to provide more utility in their ecosystem, where the user's still in control of their complete funds, and it does potentially give them sufficient wiggle room to do the innovative things that get people excited again.
Yeah.
But I think it is just that sweet balancing act that it's kind of hard to hit.
Are we seeing new people, entrants interested in self-custody? Is that something we're
Yeah,
noticing?
I mean, at least in the Bitcoin and the self-custody wallet space, there's more and more wallets entering the wallet wars, we call them, every day. We've seen a lot of new wallets come out from Solflare, Backpack, Rabby. It's not just the old school days of just MetaMask and Trust Wallet. There's a lot of competition out there, which is great, and that provides more, I'd say, opportunities for other people to innovate and provide more utility for crypto.
Very cool.
Yeah, I apologize for the shameless plug here. It's our launch day.
Oh, that's okay.
So I
Congrats.
apologize for that. I would just, I'll be brief, is just say that that's really the guiding thing. I think that we're going to win or lose the war for mass adoption at the wallet, and I think that having as many options that make that custody question clear and easy to navigate is really going to be the key.
Curious to hear where we are at in the Web3 development cycle. And I know we kind of touched on some of it but in previous discussion, but yeah, we'd love to hear where we're at.
I think it's still early.
Yeah.
There's still huge opportunities for people to get crazy, but let's look back in the last couple years here. CZ's in jail. They went after Roger. Rowan's in jail. They've gone after Wasabi Samurai. These people are the ones really trying to put pressure on anything crypto that they don't like. If you're boring and safe like FTX, you're fine. But he's in jail too, And then there's I think if you can stay somewhat pushing the boundaries but not go to jail, that's the sweet spot. But that's a really tight needle to thread, and I think developers, entrepreneurs do need to be careful, and I think it largely will require different countries to take these either more open stances like we're seeing in some regions like Dubai. I personally don't see Canada in that realm of regions that's currently allowing enough change to occur. There's a lot of just kissing the boot and going with the status quo, and just using old frameworks for this very new technology.
Do you think we're falling behind in Canada?
Extremely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just also say that being a U.S. person, having to use a VPN or use like regulatory arbitrage and move your company around the way that some of the leaders in our industry have had to do is a sign of the problem. And VPNing into a different geo block is not the solution. It's going to hold us back.
Okay, so we only have about 45 more seconds, but should we end on spicy takes? Does there anybody have a spicy take they want to share?
Sure, my spicy take would be, though in an ecosystem which is rapidly evolving, there might be a lot of noise. I would say for retail population, for developers, you should just cut through the noise and focus on innovating and building to the extent it gets to the mass adoption. In my opinion, the way we are experiencing internet today in terms of software being day-to-day part of our daily life, smart contracts will be at the core of all the interactions.
Okay.
Most of us pay attention to the wrong things. There are some projects that don't belong on a blockchain at all because it's not a really great way to store data for certain applications. And the fact of the matter is that we've lost the hearts and minds of our best potential new customers, and we're going to have to deal with that in UX.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a Canadian. I've been away from Canada for many years, but the ruling class in Canada is largely held by lawyers, politicians, media, and they do not really want crypto to be a thing. You saw that with the truckers and their bank accounts. There has not been a government that's really supporting crypto at this moment. I think we did recently have a minister from Alberta come out, and we welcomed him as well at poker night last night, which was great. But I think, so there are people trying to push the envelope, but we need more and more representatives using their voice to actually come out and speak up for the industry. Otherwise, it's just going to Singapore, it's just going to Dubai, it's just going to go to the US or some other country, and Canada's going to be left with nothing but an empty bag of Tim Hortons.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.